going, different teams, trades happening left and right. This has definitely been one of the craziest off seasons in the NBA, and one that I think is creating some excitement about the league this year.
Right.
And I as much as I'm excited for football, I want basketball to come back already. I already miss it. I don't have my Knicks are going to be miserable, but you know what? It doesn't matter. There's a competitive balance for the first time ever, and I love it. So the big news, Chris Paul traded out of Houston, which I'm going to be honest, I didn't think was going to happen. You know, I just with that contract, I didn't know anybody that was going to take that contract on, and then all of a sudden the Thunder just come and start having a fire sale. Everybody's traded. Paul George traded. That means Russell Westbrook's going to want to be traded. He requests this trade. And that was the most perfect thing for the Houston Rockets, because this deal allows you to get rid of Chris Paul, who's like 35, 36 years old. And that's the thing about point guards in this league. They drop like that. They're on top of the world one day, the top point guard like Chris Paul was, and then all of a sudden it just goes. And last year, I think you started to see a big decline with Chris Paul. He's no longer that. He's still not a bad player, but he's no longer that NBA All-Star top point guard Chris Paul that we've seen a few years ago. I go back to a couple of years ago in the playoffs. They're up 3-1, 3-2, whatever it was. He goes with that hamstring injury. That was Houston's last hurrah. Right there to try to get to an NBA Finals. That was their best chance. It fizzled out, and I think that was really it for the championship window for Chris Paul. So how do they get rid of it? Well, this just happened to be the best time. The timing could have been more perfect that the Thunder wanted to trade everybody and start over. That allowed it to be possible because both those guys have big contracts.
Right.
So you're moving money over. And really, at the end of the day, why are the Thunder willing to take a 35, 36-year-old point guard? It's because they want draft picks.
Right.
And they got a whole lot of them. Of course, in the OKC and Clippers deal, they get 5 of the Clippers picks. They get several of Houston's picks. And we talked a little bit about this at the beginning of the show when we were kind of introducing what we were doing. I thought it took a lot of guts for OKC to look back and say, you know what? Yeah, we got some good players. Yeah, we had some nice years. We've been in the mix. We've been in the playoffs. You know, we've had some big winning seasons. But it has resulted in no championships. And I think the hardest thing to do for an organization is when you have some of these pieces that are good players, good all-star players, you still try to win with them. You hang on to them.
Right.
And you have that hope that just one year they're going to be able to cash in. And a lot of the times it just does not happen. And I think OKC looked, into a mirror and went, I'm not going to win a championship with Russell Westbrook here. We had Durant here with him. We weren't good enough to win. I trade and get Paul George here. I sign him to an extension. We got him to stay. We didn't even come close to winning an NBA championship.
Right.
It's the hardest thing to do, but I give OKC a lot of credit here because I agree with them. I don't think they're a team that was going to win a championship with what they had. And they weren't going to add anybody with Russell Westbrook because it kind of comes down to the league does not seem like they want to pair up with them. He kind of has that reputation of a great player, but could be a little difficult to play with.
Absolutely.
And you don't know if you're going to be able to win it all with them. So I think OKC did something smart here and realized, look, they're an organization, as you said it, Josh. They're a very small, they're not a big, huge market like these other teams. How are they going to survive? Well, it's about drafting. And they have drafted very well over the years. Think of all the guys they've drafted. Their front office knows what they're doing there. So they're looking at it. We're not going to win a championship, so let's reset, do what we do, let's draft some players, let's develop them, see if we can get a new wave of players that can make us championship contenders. And they have a lot of picks. So I give OKC a lot of credit for looking at it themselves and saying, we're not going to win a championship. We got a star. Let's move on from it and start over. Not a lot of teams will do that. A lot of teams will hold on and just hope that they get a championship.
Right.
So I give them a lot of credit. I think the moves they made to get the draft picks they have with the draft history they have, Okay, it might be a couple bad years for OKC here, but I think they're going to get back to a level of competing for championships in the next few years if they continue to do what they do well during the draft process. Now, with that being said, what does this do for Houston? Does this trade, in your opinion, Josh, do you think this puts Houston back into the mix, into the championship contention discussion? Is it enough? No?
No.
Okay.
Because I think you're going similarly to the same route you've been on before. I mean, Westbrook is even more ball dominant than Chris Paul was when Chris Paul came into Houston Rockets. And you couple that with how ball dominant James Harden is, I just don't like the fit. Yeah, they did play in OKC, and they kind of fit together. But when Harden was there, he was the sixth man.
Right.
And so he got a lot of time without Westbrook on the court. And then he was the obvious third guy at that point. But right now, it's Harden's team, but I don't know how Westbrook is gonna handle that. And then also you look at these guys, they like to rack up their stats, the assists, the rebounds,
the triple-double guys.
The triple-double guys. It's just a strange fit to me, and I would have liked to see Houston do something more along the lines of trade for a wing player, like a Wiggins. That to me would have been a better fit. Because he's not going to be ball dominant. He can play off the ball, and but it just doesn't seem like the right fit to me. That's just it. I was hoping to see Westbrook in Minnesota, because I thought that would have been a better fit.
Okay.
Or Miami. But
I thought Miami was going to get in there and match them up with.
I thought Miami. Butler. The only thing with Miami, they didn't have the players to do it.
Right.
They had the picks, but they didn't have the players to send, essentially. And Chris Paul, you got Russell Westbrook at notch here. Chris Paul's the next notch down. He's not a bad get, especially after you get all those draft picks. So I like what the Thunder are doing. They got a nice core. They got Gorgeous Alexander. They got Gallinari, who could get you 20 points a night. Mm-hmm. Now they got Paul, what you're saying, they're trying to shop him.
Right.
But I just thought, with the rumors coming out of Minnesota that a guy like Wiggins, now granted, he's not the star that a Westbrook is, but you don't need a Westbrook if you're in Houston. I think what they need is a wing. You went the essential 2-point guard route.
Right.
And it hasn't panned out. So I think Houston's probably back in the same boat they've been, in my opinion.
I do think the trade, they do ship out a point guard that's much older. They do get a guy that's in the prime of his career. However, though, yes, it is a major concern how those two are going to be able to play together. They both like the ball a lot. I will say that was the same thing, though, that was said about Chris Paul. When Chris Paul got traded to Houston. Right. That was, how is this going to work? And I am pretty sure, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I believe, Caleb was one that said that it wasn't going to work, that those two both need the ball too much. And it ended up not being the worst thing.
Right.
I think Chris Paul changed a little bit.
But I do think that part of that was that the rest of the West kind of regressed at that same time. It happened a couple with the rest of the West coming back to Houston or below Houston, where, teams like San Antonio started to drop. You didn't have the Clippers in the way. The only team that was there was really Golden State. But now you're looking at it, what other teams in the West have done.
Compared to other teams. Right.
The Lakers have gotten so much more better. The Clippers have gotten better.
Utah
is going to be pretty nasty next year. And you look at Denver, an upcoming team. So you got 4 other teams that's positioned themselves nicely that you have to pass or rise up to. And, I just think it's kind of bad timing in a sense that when the other teams in your neighborhood have done
improved as well.
Improved better.
You're not the only team that made an upgrade.
Right. Absolutely.
And those upgrades for the other teams may be better. Right.
I think it's more substantial for the other team.
I agree with you. Absolutely. But I do when you look at the Houston team, though, I think they were fading And if
Right,
you keep
absolutely.
Chris Paul, you're really going to be fading. I think they kind of put themselves where they are right now.
Right.
What we have seen. I don't think they're going to be in contention next year for a title, but they'll be a playoff team, maybe a second round.
They
playoff
may
team.
be like an OKC
Right.
down the road if they don't do something here in the next couple of years. You may see this being the next Oklahoma City Thunder. You know, either they're gonna go all in and they're gonna get this done,
And it gets
or they're
stuck.
gonna have to hit the reset button,
Right.
just like Sam
I thought
Presti
that
at
was
Oklahoma
coming.
City.
I thought that was coming.
Right.
At the way last year ended. And I'll say this. You got two guards that are all-star guards, both great players, no question about it. But at the end of the day, if you don't have a presence inside the paint that can score consistently,
Right.
you ain't going to win.
Right.
And I think that's the thing with Portland is they didn't really have that. Cantor was a nice player to come
Right.
in for him and fill in, but is he the most dominant big man? No. He gets 16 points, but what's Portland really missing? They got two great guards that light it up.
Right.
There's only so much they can do, though, when they cool off a little bit from the outside. Then you need that guy that can go in and score inside the paint. That's
Right.
what made Golden State so difficult to stop because
Right.
you have Clay, you have Curry. They're burying threes. They cool off a little bit. Even Durant knocking down threes. They cool off a little bit. What do? Well, they just give KD the ball in the post, and
Right.
he heats back up because you can't stop him. He's too lengthy. He'll get a shot off anytime he wants. If they had a post score, they had a post presence. I don't think Houston has that. So I don't think it's necessarily a move that it's not like last week where the Clippers should win it all or could
Right.
win it all, I should say. Houston, I don't think they're a championship team, but I do think they made themselves a little bit more relevant
Right.
than what they were becoming because I thought the reset was going to happen.
Right.
I love you made a good point though about Gallinari being a part of that Thunder deal and going there. He's going to be a piece they could probably
Right.
spin at the deadline.
And
get more picks.
Alexander,
right?
he's
You'll
a
keep
young
him,
piece.
right? You'll
Yeah.
keep him and already have him kind of develop as one of your main young players. But I think Gallinari's a guy that you spin at the deadline and get even more picks.
Right.
OKC is going to have like 30 picks in it. It's going to be crazy.
It's going to be nuts.
The whole first round is going to be drafted by OKC, basically. So it's not a bad thing what they're doing. And, when you got players like that, I think they smartly did it. They traded
Right.
and got a nice package and looked towards the future, and they're willing to sacrifice a couple of years.
Right. And they're essentially the Oakland A's of the NBA. They're a small market.
Right.
And you go all the way back to the James Harden trade. They weren't going to be able to keep Harden, Westbrook, and Durant in a small market. It just wasn't feasible. So they had to make a decision.
Right.
Whether you think it was the right decision or not, at the time, Harden was the third guy, and he was the easy choice to get out of OKC. And now with the reset button, they're getting all these assets. They got a few young players. They got a guy that could score in Gallinari. Can he lead a team deep in the playoffs? No, but he's another asset that, like you said, they could flip him for some more draft picks or some more young developmental talent. So I like what OKC is doing because I'm like you. If you're not going to make these deep runs, you're not going to get the deal
What's
done.
the point? Right.
You're wasting time.
And you're just paying somebody
And-
that's good, makes
right.
your team a little exciting, but it might get you on TV.
And
but
I tend to think that's what Houston's doing. I think they're just biding time till they're going to have to hit the reset button. But with all that being said, the guys ahead of them right now that appears are ahead of them, the Clippers, Kawhi Leonard's missed a lot of time. 2 years ago, he missed the whole season, essentially. This past year, he's missed 20 games. You look at the Lakers, Anthony Davis, he's hardly ever made it through
I
a
think
full
LeBron's
season.
going to miss
Right.
probably about
LeBron's
15
probably
games.
Cousins always misses a lot of time. And so you look at these guys, if there's a lot of injuries to those two teams, which we've seen it happen before, Houston could capitalize. That's the one caveat is if these
Keep
other
themselves
teams,
relevant, right.
the other teams have these injuries. You saw it this year. Injuries played a role in the finals, but these teams were waiting to pounce and take advantage. The Raptors made the roster to take advantage. Houston could be kind of that team where if there's a few injuries to their competitors, they could drop right in there.
Like I said, there's about 10 teams, 10, 11 teams that have a legitimate chance.
I'm excited because, you got the guys and the superstars that you you're confident in with Kawhi and LeBron. But then you got these up and coming teams like Denver and Utah that have built super awesome cores, and so it's really good for the all timers of the NBA or your veterans. But then you got some youth as well. So I think it's going to be an awesome season next year.
And it's just, this is something, I don't know the last time I came into the league or the season, where there is this balance. I can't tell you the last time.
It is very balanced.
It seems like ever since LeBron left and went to Miami and created that big three, it seems like there has been a big three every single year since then, somewhere in basketball. And it's duos this year. There's still that partnering up things, but it's kind of like, all right, this is my guy. We're going to take on your guy. It's Kawhi and Paul George versus LeBron and AD.
And that's the way it was in the 90s. You had a lot of duos. You had Jordan, Pippen. You had, early 90s, Magic and Worthy.
Right.
I mean, you had all these duos, Shaq and Penny, Kobe and Shaq. And now it's getting back to that where there's some parity. It looks like it's going to be happening in the league. And also the good thing is, you don't have these guys signing 1-and-1 deals this time around. It's 2+1. 2 years with a year to opt out. So we're probably going to sit on this NBA the way it is for the next at least 2 years, and we haven't had that the past few years. You have free agency be pretty crazy.
Man, I'm just so ready.
Yeah,
I've been talking to so much people that. We talk about the NBA, and it's kind of like, there's some story. But now it's like, oh, my God, I can't wait for it to come back.
And don't forget about Golden State. Like, throwing them to the curb. They did make a nice move in getting Russell out of the Durant deal with that sign and trade. He's no Durant.
But he's an all-star caliber player.
Yeah, he's still a nice piece, and he probably fits them pretty well.
Now, they did lose a lot of their supporting cast. Iggy's out. They lost
I think Cook. Livingston's going by the wayside.
So they're going to have to retool here, but when you have that core like they have, all right, you can get somebody along the lines to those second tier guys to fit around them and be a very competitive team. So I don't think Golden State's going anywhere.
Right.
This year, with the injuries, they might take a big
when
step
does Clay
back.
come back? They
could be like a 7 seed or 8 seed this year. I could totally see that, but they're still not a team that you're going to feel too comfortable with.
Right, absolutely.
They're going to be a tough out. So we'll take it. We'll take a break right here. We'll leave it where we're at. We'll come back. And typically on the way in, some of the topics that the fellows, they do, I don't understand what they're talking about a lot.
Right.
But today they had a very interesting discussion here. And I was kind of like, you know what? That's a good topic. And we're going to kind of steal it. So I'm stealing this from the fellows, or we're just going to continue it on.
Right.
So when we come back, we're going to talk about what could baseball do. There's a big drop-off in attendance. There's a big drop-off in the game overall. There's obviously football is like the most important thing now, but baseball used to be the biggest thing. Everybody wanted to watch baseball. What could baseball do to get back to being maybe the top sport or one of these sports that people are excited about watching? We'll get into that when we come back from this break. So you're listening to the Saturday Sports Report here on Fox Sports 1400.